Greetings, you are watching Dugin's Guideline. Recently, on Capitol Hill, the US military tried to justify the next increase of the military budget. The argument, the need to deter Russia. General Philip Breedlove was the main speaker.
And what we now have is clearly not a partner in Russia. And so we have to begin reshaping the European command and the NATO force structure to be able now to confront someone that does not wish to share our norms and values in Europe.
For us, it is not so important whether they will increase the budget or not. More essential is how do they perceive Russia and what do they plan to do. Breedlove's speech was already labeled as Putin's deconstruction. The fact is that he directly, in a soldier-like style, explained what is in Putin's mind and what should be done to affect these cognitive processes. It is not so important if Pentagon hoaxes succeeded in guessing the Russian president's real thoughts. In fact, it seems that it is a puzzle not only for our enemies, but also for our friends. The most important thing is how the most hawkish part of the American military and political elite sees us and what they are going to do as a result. So, Breedlove believes that the American sanctions against Russia haven't brought a decisive result. It is a crucial declaration. They thought that they could beat us, but failed. Something went wrong. Here is how the NATO general explained it.
I believe Mr. Putin is using a crisis inside his nation. I do believe that his people are feeling the dropping in oil prices, the sanctions, and the other things affecting his government. But he uses that to focus them on an external enemy, to bring their focus to what he wants to do with his nation and his power. And he is now focusing his people completely on the United States first and foremost, and secondarily NATO, as an external enemy that they need to be ready to rise up to meet.
It turns out that Putin has learned how to deal with internal troubles. He transformed them into foreign ones. The West tightens the sanctions against Russia, who starts a military operation or territorial reunification or even stops the migrant influx in Europe. American tactics are not working. The patriotic sentiments are growing in Russia, and Europe is beginning to wonder if they made the right decision. Putin is strong and Obama is troubled and uncertain. He promised peace, but rivers of blood were shed. He started new wars, failed to withdraw American troops from problematic regions, and hasn't solved any problems. Europe faces a rather stupid scenario. They supported their big NATO brother, but the results were the opposite. Sanctions hurt the Europeans themselves. Neo-Nazi Kiev showed its terrible face and became more threatening and insane. And finally, there is the migrant influx, which is raping everything that moves. But order and stability is close to Europe. In Russia isn't a time to change your partner. That is what Breedlove doesn't want to allow to happen. How? It is very simple. He needs $3 billion for the European Reassurance Initiative. It is not a joke, it is a real project name. Its sense is too simple, like the brains of the man in the American military, to invade Europe with American troops, bases and ammunition that no one could question. Of course, if European citizens finally turn into service staff for American military bases, Europe would feel more confident. So the purpose, reassurance, will be achieved. Of course, the general could not openly say this, as there is some code of behavior, even with junior partners. To avoid any trouble, Breedlove said that Putin must be deterred. Previously, as Breedlove said, the US saw Russia as its partner, but failed to hack it to death. Now, only one way remains: deterrence.
If we only use the diplomatic, the informational, and the economic to address Mr. Putin, he will see that the military is absent, or, as I think Admiral Stavridis talked to you about, a lack of will to use the military may be absent. And so I think to deter Mr. Putin, we have to have an all-of-government response, which shows resistance diplomatically, informationally, militarily, and economically. And then important to the military piece is not only having the capability and the capacity, but showing the will to use it if and only if required.
Much like the economic sanctions, media propaganda and diplomatic pressure have not deterred Putin, and the agents of influence of the fifth and sixth columns aren't able to launch a Russian color revolution, so there is only one option: to apply pressure using military actions. This is why the policy of deterrence has a military component, and therefore $3 billion is required. Now, the most interesting thing. What are the reasons for the deterrence beside the allocations of billions? Breedlove decided to psychoanalyze Putin to respond to this possible criticism. So we have a conclusion. It is only possible to deter someone when they realize that they are being deterred. In other words, if Putin realizes that US has started to apply serious military pressure on Russia, he will see that he has no possibilities to transform home troubles into foreign ones. So he will become deterred. In fact, it is not so important to deter Putin using military methods, but rather to pretend to do it. It is some kind of military postmodernism or just a trick. Goodbye, you watched Dugin's guideline on deterrence. I am sorry if I called a spade a spade.